Before K-pop became global, it was simply music we lived with. Songs on television, voices on VHS tapes, melodies shared with family and friends. This documentary is a personal journey. From childhood in Seoul to life in America, from controlled culture to global influence. It explores how Korean popular music grew alongside a changing society, shaped by politics, migration, and identity. This is the K-pop I grew up with. Not just a genre, but the sound of a generation learning how to speak. I was born in 1973 in Seoul, South Korea. At the time, I didn't realize our country was poor. I didn't feel it that way as a child, probably thanks to my parents. We weren't rich, but we were stable. I know that now because my father was a construction worker, often traveling for work, coming home only once a month or so. Looking back, I understand how much my parents protected us from hardship. As a child, I wasn't immediately drawn to music. Like many kids, I was more into animated series. But one day, I heard a song on television that stopped me. It had a melancholy I had never felt before. It left me with a strange emotion I couldn't explain at the time. Warm, but confusing. I didn't know who the singer was then. Later, I learned his name was
조덕배.
I don't remember the exact song he performed, but I remember the feeling. That moment was likely the beginning of my relationship with what we now call K-pop, what Koreans once simply called
대중가요.
popular music. I was also influenced by my two older brothers and older cousins. They talked about singers, argued about which songs were good or bad, and I listened from the side. The artists I remember from that time include
조덕배, 조용필, 나미, 김범용, 정수라, 그리고 신해철.
At school, we talked about these artists with friends. We sang their songs together. Looking back now, it's incredible to think. The Korean songs my friends and I used to sing together in schoolyards and playgrounds, songs we hummed while running around as kids, are now being sung by people across the globe. Those are my earliest memories of Korean popular music in the early 1980s. In 1986, my family moved to the United States. We lived briefly in Dayton and Cincinnati, Ohio, then Killeen, Texas. By 1987 or 1988, we settled in Dallas. Dallas felt different. It was bigger. There were Korean markets, larger churches, a visible Korean community. Growing up as a Korean American, many of us lived two lives. At school, we spoke English. At home, we spoke Korean. Living this way, many Korean immigrants strangely never cut off, or perhaps could not cut off, their connection to Korean life and culture. Maybe Koreans simply love that shared emotional world too much. We empathize together, gather together, sometimes argue, but ultimately understand one another. I may not be able to define it precisely, but that perhaps is culture. Throughout the 1980s to early 2000s, before the internet, we accessed Korean music and shows through VHS tapes. Wherever there was a Korean market, there was usually a video rental store nearby. Once a week, we would rent 5, sometimes 10, tapes and watch them together as a family. That time shaped us. Maybe that's why Korean dramas, music, and films still feel so natural to me today. Even back then, I remember thinking, it's a shame people in other countries can't see or hear how good this is. In the 1980s, South Korea's popular music scene existed under strict control. The country was still emerging from decades of military rule, and culture was treated as something to be managed. Lyrics were screened before release. Performances were censored. Artists could be banned from television for long hair, political language, or behavior deemed socially improper. Music was allowed, but only within boundaries. Pop songs avoided confrontation, reflecting stability rather than dissent. Entertainment was not a space for criticism. It was a space for order. That began to change in the late 1980s as mass protests pushed South Korea toward democratization. With political reform came cultural breathing room. Young people, shaped by rapid industrialization and intense academic pressure, searched for something that felt real. In 1992,
서태지와 아이들.
appeared on national television. Their sound, hip-hop, rap, and dance was unfamiliar. Their lyrics questioned education systems, conformity, and identity. Broadcast judges criticized them. Young audiences embraced them. It wasn't a political protest in the traditional sense, but it was cultural defiance. Their success marked a shift. Music no longer needed permission to speak, only listeners willing to hear it. As the idol system emerged in the 1990s, direct military censorship faded, but regulation remained. Broadcasting standards replaced bans. Morality clauses replaced explicit political control. Idols were trained not only to perform but to behave. They were expected to represent discipline, respectability, and national image. Personal expression came second to collective responsibility. Then came 1997, the Asian financial crisis, known as the IMF crisis. Businesses collapsed. Unemployment surged. Public confidence fractured. The government realized culture could be economic strategy. Entertainment became industry. Music, TV, and film became exportable assets. The Hallyu wave was not accidental. It was encouraged, funded, and promoted. K-pop groups of the 2000s, HOT, Super Junior, Big Bang, Girls' Generation, and solo artist BoA, were polished, disciplined, and globally marketable. They offered optimism during recovery. They projected youth, competence, and modernity to the world. By the 2000s, K-pop reached global success. Yet at home, tension between culture and politics resurfaced. Under conservative administrations, an unofficial cultural blacklist targeted artists perceived as politically critical or socially progressive. Some lost funding. Others disappeared from broadcasts. Few spoke publicly. For idols, silence wasn't neutrality, it was survival. Global platforms like YouTube changed everything. In 2012, Gangnam Style went viral, redefining Korea's cultural presence. Soon after, BTS and others built international audiences large enough to exist beyond domestic gatekeepers. Global fans began asking questions Korean media rarely asked openly, about labor, mental health, and control. The 2020s accelerated this shift. During the pandemic, K-pop became digital diplomacy. Online concerts connected millions. Idols became symbols of resilience and innovation. And the music changed. Lyrics spoke more openly about anxiety, burnout, self-doubt, and identity. New generations, Stray Kids, aespa, New Jeans, ATs, experimented with sound and image, quietly pushing back against rigid expectations. By the time the blacklist era was officially acknowledged, the industry had already evolved. Creative freedom expanded, not fully, but noticeably. Artists gained more voice. Audiences gained more awareness. By 2025, K-pop exists as both product and platform, shaped by censorship and state support, forged through economic crisis, disciplined by social pressure. K-pop did not grow outside politics. It grew inside it. From restriction to strategy, from silence to soft power, from control to conversation. Now, standing where I am today, I feel pride. I watch people all over the world, no longer just Koreans, listening to K-pop, feeling it, and connecting through it. The Korean songs my friends and I used to sing as children, once a private, local joy, are now sung across the globe. No one cared back then. No one imagined this. In 2026, K-pop reached another moment that once felt impossible. It left a major mark on global entertainment by winning 2 Golden Globe Awards for K-pop Demon Hunters. The film stayed in Netflix's top 10 for months. I lost count of how long it remained. It became one of the most watched films on the platform. That still feels unreal. But what excites me most is what comes next. It feels like we're only standing at the beginning. Pandora's box hasn't been opened completely. This is just the start of K-pop's story. Watching it unfold, from childhood memories, VHS tapes, to a global conversation, I can't help but wonder how much further it will go. This is not only the history of a genre, it is the sound of a society and a generation learning how to speak.